Okay.
Just trust me.
So that's sort of,
I'm a professional. Okay. Okay. So I'm just gonna ask you a few questions.
all right, let's start as an introduction. You say, Mr. Brown, who are you?
Mr. Brown, who are you?
Well, my name is Henry A. L. Brown, and I am the city historian for the city of Warwick. And I've published 7 books and co-authored a number of books. And so anyway, this evening I'm so happy to be able to join you, Jack, at your house at 77 Parkside Drive. And I understand that you are going to ask me a few questions pertaining to the burning of the Gaspee. And so let me stop talking and let you begin talking.
Okay. And in between these, we can talk normally because we can kind of separate the video into different parts.
All right.
So I'm going to try and find my first question.
Jack, you have to speak up a little more
Okay.
clearly.
I will. Okay, this is a simple one. Just to hear it from you. Okay, when did the burning of the Gaspee actually take place?
June, what was it, June
June 10th.
10th, 1772.
Okay.
And it occurred right off a sandbar jutting out into Narragansett Bay, and the sandbar was known as Namquid Point, and it was just 2 miles below the harbor of Patuxent.
Perfect. Okay, next question. This is also going to be a bit about one of the John Browns of history. It's going to be around him around this time. So can you tell me a bit about him if you know what time period I'm talking about?
Now, John Brown was a Providence merchant, and he was descended from Chad Brown, who came from England in 1638. So John Brown was, I think, the 5th generation of Browns to live in Providence. He had a number of brothers, and there was known as the 4 Brown brothers. There were John, Joseph, Nicholas, and Moses. Now, John Brown was one of the younger brothers, and he was trained by his uncle in the trade, the coastal trade, selling with molasses, selling and moving molasses from city to city. They shipped out lumber and onions and molasses, and they brought molasses in, which was distilled into rum. So John Brown was born in around the 1720s, and so he was in his 40s in 1772 at the time of the burning of the Gaspee.
Perfect. You got that right on dot. Almost straight words. Wow.
Jack, I don't know how much video my phone will take, but should I stop it and email it to you?
Mom, your phone will take a while of video.
Okay.
And if not, mine will take video too.
Okay.
So we'll have a backup.
Okay, because it's 4 minutes so far.
Okay, mine just ran out. Okay. So,
Such a good Finnegan.
okay, now that I have that video, yours is still going. Hopefully it'll stay that way. Okay, I think I have my next question. Finny.
Finn, come.
Come on, good boy.
Come, Finn.
Do you know at the time what John Brown's kind of where he stood on slavery. Did he like it? Did he not like it? Did he want to abolish slavery?
John Brown was all the four Brown brothers, and and at that time, slaves were a commodity. Commodity was like trading rum. If you sold or bought slaves, it was like trading in rum, molasses, dried fish, onions, and so it wasn't considered an evil practice at that time. So we have different concept of what slavery is today. But at the time John Brown was growing up as a young man and started into the mercantile trade, slavery was a commodity. And now the Brown brothers.
Could we pause for a sec? Technical difficulties.
Okay.
It's okay. We can just. All right. Right there. Okay. Please continue.
All right. The four Brown brothers entered into the slave trade in 1765, and they sent a ship from Providence and the commander, his name was Hopkins, and they sent a ship to the coast of Africa, Guinea, and where they purchased slaves. And so that the ship then sailed for the West Indies in order to sell the ship, and then a few slaves were destined to be sold in Charleston, and then they said bring a few slaves back to Providence, and they would be trained as house servants. And so it really wasn't an evil trade, but the trade was such a disaster for the four Brown brothers. Many of the cargo, 3/4 of the cargo, they died en route. And so that by the time they reached the West Indies and they eventually arrived in Providence, a good 30-40% of the slaves had died, had perished. And the older brother, Moses, stated that he felt that, and shortly after Moses, the ship arrived, Moses' wife died, and he thought it was a curse, and it was a curse on the family and on himself for dealing in human traffic. And so his other brothers, Joseph, Nicholas, and Moses, then got out of the slave trade, never again to enter the slave trade. But the brother John said it would be a good thing to bring these slaves in, because he said that it will help them and so forth, and it would be good for the slaves. So at any rate, John Brown continued in the slave trade up until 1798 or around 1800, and so of course John Brown died in 1803, but one of his ships was auctioned off, and there was a very strong anti-slavery movement in the latter part of the 1790s. So that John Brown continued right up until almost his death to continue in the slave trade.
Okay, that was great. You covered a lot of this. Wow. I'm not going to have many more questions. Let's see.
Well, I'm going to share with you one of the things. What was the importance of here's the scenario. June the 10th, the Gaspee was destroyed, right? The sailors were removed to Patuxent Harbor. The captain was removed to Stillhouse Cove, where he was shot and so forth. The captain then and the crew were released by the governor of Rhode Island, Governor Wanton, and then by December, the British government decided a court of inquiry was to be held in Newport, Rhode Island. And the British government in London had sent 3 ships to bring back returned prisoners. And they thought that they had these condemned Gaspee raiders would be brought back to London where they would be tried, and if they were convicted, they would be hung, proudly drawn, and quartered. Do you know what it means by drawn and quartered? What?
I'm pretty sure, well, in other essence, they just die, but like I'm pretty sure they have a stretcher machine.
Now, if you're drawn and quartered, what you do is that they take a sword or a razor, and they open up your abdomen
Ugh.
and your entrails, all your intestines fall out, and so that you're not only you're hung, but you're drawn and quartered. Your entrails fall out, and so forth.
Ugh.
So, anyways, pretty gruesome. So, anyway, that was the penalty. Now, it's interesting that some people said, "Well, why would they do this?" Well, I think it was impulse. I think John Brown was a very impulsive man, and the British government had restricted the market boats and trading in Narragansett Bay. They had also put on a heavy toll and fee for rum and a tax on it, and so subsequently the merchants avoided paying the tax on rum or whatever, and they stopped a lot of these little market boats that were carrying onions or carrots or lumber or whatever it was. They carried back and forth across the bay because there was trade between, we say, Patuxent and Bristol and Warren and Newport and Whitford and so forth. So all these little boats from every one of these towns and villages is going back and forth, and the British are stopping all these little boats. It created havoc in Narragansett Bay. And so subsequently, the John Brown was evidently, must have been very affected by this harassment. It was costing John Brown money. And as Moses said, my brother John has a love of money. He has a love of money. He loves money. And so that I think when they found that the Hannah maneuvered the Gaspee onto the sandbar, scooted over the top of the sandbar, went to Providence. They notified John Brown, who actually owned the packet boat, the Hannah. The Hannah brought in mail, and they delivered mail. There was also, particularly on that boat, there was silver and coinage. And so it was John Brown, I think they felt at that time, now is a chance to rid the bay of this boat. So that's when they organized, it was Sabin's Caravan. They went down with the 12 long boats, or it was, now long boats were huge boats. They weren't just little rowboats. We'll say the length of this room maybe, the long boats that were what, 16 feet? 16 or 20 feet. They were big. And they were manned by what, six or eight oarsmen. Then so that it took a great deal of effort to row these boats down, and they had a rudder, and of course the one man, there was a captain in each one of those long boats, and he then knew the route down and so forth, and they very silently, they muffled their oars. Do you know what that means, muffled?
Yeah, they kind of made them silent. I don't know how they did it though.
Well, they took because your oars set on a rowlock, and the rowlocks made noise every time you rowed. They creaked. They went creak, 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 so forth, metallic against wood. So what they did is they wrapped the oars with cloth, so it was so that you could glide very silently, so as you rode, you didn't make any noise at all.